The Berlin Wall symbolized the Cold War and was also known as the Iron Curtain. This separated people from the east and west of Germany, keeping job opportunities in the west. The person who ordered the construction of the Berlin Wall was Walter Ulbricht and Nikita Khrushchev, who was also the leader of the Soviet Union at the time. West Germany was run by the Allies and the German Democratic was run by the Soviet Union. Since the border was in the heart of Berlin, the capital was shared between the Soviet Union, America, Britain, and France. The Berlin Wall also represented a symbolic boundary between communism and capitalism. Others that the wall represented was the suppression of human rights. The wall was to keep communism out of West Germany. The wall in the beginning had glass shards and barbed wires on the wall and was 12 feet tall and 100 miles long. To prevent people from crossing, construction workers built two walls, and in between was called no man's land. And in no man's land contained guards, guard towers, tripwires, guard dogs, anti-tank barriers, and etc. This was also known as the death strip since many people died.
The demolition of the Berlin Wall took place on the night of November 9, 1989, continuing over the following days and weeks. Its official demolition began on June 13, 1990. More than 2 million people from East Berlin went over to West Berlin to celebrate. Some people crossed safely, while others grabbed their axes and hammers and started to break the wall. The reunion of East and West Germany was made official on October 3, 1990, which was almost 1 year after the fall of the Berlin Wall. The Berlin Wall was entirely surrounding West Berlin. Since you can't cross the wall easily, there are checkpoints like Checkpoint Charlie, also known as Checkpoint C, and Checkpoint Bravo, also known as Checkpoint B. Checkpoint Bravo was the closest motorway border. Checkpoint Charlie was the best known crossing point between East and West Germany and has also become a symbol of the Cold War.
East Berlin built a wall to divide East and West Germany. It caused a crisis in the US-Soviet bloc relation. Thousands of East Germans were seeking refuge at West German embassies in Eastern Europe. East German leaders stated that citizens needed their passport or visa to travel. On August 12, 1961, East Germany decided to seal off all entrances into West Berlin by stringing barbed wire fences and posting soldiers from keeping citizens from entering. Citizens still tried to enter both sides, so they made the wall concrete. The Berlin Wall took 2 weeks to be built. A spokesperson from East Berlin's Communist Party announced they want to change with the West. By midnight, the spokesperson said that the GDR, German Democratic Republic, were able to cross the country's border. This meant people knew the war was coming to an end. November 9th, 1989 was when East Germans demolished parts of the wall, but parts of the wall still remained. East and West Germany reunited on October 3rd, 1990.
The fall of the wall was the first critical step to German unification. This also symbolized the end of the Cold War and directed an extreme change in global affairs. As the Berlin Wall began to fall, the Soviet power began to fall with it. Although the German reunification was slow and expensive, it was mostly successful and has made new business opportunities. The person who drove the Soviet Union to the ground was Mikhail Gorbachev, a politician under the Communist Party. Before the Cold War started, the Soviet Union installed communist-leaning governments within Eastern European countries. Due to the fear of communism, America, Britain, Canada, and its other European allies formed the NATO alliance. This was also known as the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. On the other hand, the Soviet Union formed the Warsaw Pact with other Eastern Bloc organizations. What caused the fall of the Soviet Union was due to political, economical, and propaganda fronts in the Eastern and Western blocs. Over the years, Communist Party elites have gained wealth and power, while citizens or average people were poor to afford food. This led to starvation because of food shortages. Also, citizens were not provided the basic needs such as clothes or shoes.
In August of 1991, a sudden and illegal occupation of power determined the Soviet Union's fate and started to decrease Gorbachev's power. Mikhail Gorbachev resigned from power on December 25, 1991. the Soviet Union ceased to exist on December 31st, 1991. A few days after Gorbachev resigned from power, 11 representatives from the different republics met up in Kazakhstan in the city of Alma-Ata to announce that they were no longer part of the Soviet Union. The USSR split into 15 republics. These included Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarusia or Belarus, Estonia, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Latvia, Lithuania, Moldavia or Moldova, Russia, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Ukraine, and Uzbekistan.
The Soviet Union's economic goals failed, which led to an arms race with the US. This led to an economic decline for the Soviet Union. Mikhail Gorbachev realized that the USSR couldn't afford the arms race, so he concentrated on the economic crisis and growing the political interest in the satellite nations. Gorbachev also began to reform the Soviet system by the democratization of the Communist Party and allowing freedom of speech. Communist hardliners attempted to remove Gorbachev from power, but was imprisoned for a while because military tried seizing the Russian parliament. In September 1991, the Congress of People's Deputies voted for the dissolution of the Soviet Union. The Union gained wealth and power, but its people were starving. Soviets didn't have access to the resources they needed. They suffered poverty, and Soviet citizens created backlash. The US planned foreign attacks on the Soviet economy. When the oil and gas revenue dropped, this was due to the isolation by US President Ronald Reagan, keeping the USSR's economy separated from the rest of the world. The USSR began to lose its position in Eastern Europe.
Some long-term effects from the fall of the Soviet Union was from high military spending, low outputs of crops and consumer goods, ethnic and nationalist movements, and denial of rights and freedom. Other immediate causes were food and fuel shortages, Gorbachev's rise to power, and the war with Afghanistan. And other effects was that the Soviet Union breaks up into 15 republics, and a war in Chechnya started.